You did it. Someone paid you. The agreement is signed. The payment is in. The first session is booked, or the first deliverable is due, and you're officially, actually doing the thing. And instead of feeling great about this, which you absolutely should be, you feel something closer to a mild terror, right? Because now it's real. Now there's a person on the other end of this who has actually given you their actual money and has actual expectations. And you have to actually deliver something. And what if it's not good enough? What if they're disappointed? What if you've oversold what you can do? And what if this was all a terrible mistake and you should have just stayed in your old job? Or alternatively, and this is equally common, you feel fine right up until the work starts. And then you go into overdrive. You add things they didn't ask for, spend 4 hours on something that should have taken 1. You send 3 follow-up messages when 1 really would have been enough. You are so determined to make this person happy that you are slowly, quietly making yourself miserable. Both of these responses are normal. Both of them are your brain trying to protect you from something. And both of them, left unchecked, will make the delivery harder than it needs to be for you and for your client. That's what we're sorting out today. Hey up, I'm Lee, and this is week 13 of Basic AF. Let's get into it. Here's the thing about the first client delivery. The problem is almost never the work itself. Most people who get to this point are genuinely capable of doing what they've said they'll do. They've validated the offer, they've designed it carefully, they know their stuff. The problem is the relationship between their expectations and their client's expectations, and more specifically, whether those two things are actually aligned or just assumed to be aligned. The freeze. This happens when you're not sure exactly what good looks like for this client. So you second guess every decision, you go back and redo things you've already done, you ask for more feedback than you need because you're outsourcing your confidence to the client instead of trusting your own judgment. The over-delivery spiral, that happens when you're trying to compensate for an anxiety that you can't quite name. You know what you agreed to deliver, but anxiety whispers that it might not be enough, so you add a bit more, and then a bit more. Until eventually you've delivered twice what you agreed to, you're exhausted and quietly resentful. You've also accidentally set an expectation for every future client that comes after that this is what they get, which is a whole different problem entirely. Both of these have the same root: unclear expectations at the start of the engagement, either about what you're delivering or about what success looks like to the client. And the fix for both of them is the same: clarity at the beginning, discipline in the middle, and a clear ending. I want you to meet Marcus. Marcus runs a one-person graphic design business. He specializes in brand identity for independent food and drink businesses. You know, cafes, small businesses, that kind of thing. He's talented. His portfolio, built from freelance work he did alongside his previous job, is really strong. He left his in-house role 6 months ago and has been building steadily since. His first official client as a full-time freelancer is a small coffee roastery. They're launching a new line of retail bags. They want 3 bag designs, a consistent visual identity across them, and delivered within 4 weeks. The agreed price is $1,200. Agreement signed, deposit paid. Marcus is excited for approximately 48 hours. Then the freeze sets in. He sits down to start the initial concepts and immediately starts questioning everything. Is he approaching this the right way? Should he have asked more questions in the briefing? He goes back and reads the brief 6 times. He starts 3 different directions, hates all of them, closes the laptop. He opens it again the next morning. He does more research on coffee branding than any human being has ever done, and he produces a set of 3 initial concepts that he thinks are decent, then spends a further 2 days tweaking them before sending them, because he doesn't want to send something that isn't perfect. When he finally sends the concepts over, a week later than he planned, he includes this slightly frantic email with 17 sentences of explanation, context, and preemptive defense of his choices. The client replies within 20 minutes. These are great. We love direction too. Let's run with that. Marcus is relieved. He also realizes that he has burned a week of clock time and an enormous amount of energy on anxiety, not on work. He vows to do it differently for the next phase. He does not entirely succeed, but he does get a little bit better. We'll talk about how later. First, let's talk about how to actually manage the client delivery, specifically the middle part, the doing the work, in a way that doesn't leave you frozen or burnt out. Before the work starts in earnest, in your first session or your project kickoff, you need to be clear on 3 things. Not assumed, actually confirmed, ideally in writing. What does done look like? Not your definition of done, their definition of done. What does the client need to be able to say at the end of this engagement? What's the specific outcome they are measuring? For Marcus, 3 retail bag designs, production-ready files, consistent visual identity, clear, measurable, and agreed. What's the feedback process? How many rounds of revision are included? How do they give you feedback? Email, shared document, a call? What's the turnaround time if you need from them? Getting this agreed at the start means you're not negotiating it mid-project when everyone is tired and there's a deadline. And what's out of scope? This is the one that people skip most often and regret most consistently. For Marcus, out of scope would mean website design, social media graphics, anything beyond the initial 3 retail bag formats. If the client asks for something out of scope, Marcus can say yes and charge for it, or just say no. But either way, it's a clear decision rather than a murky drift. Write these down, share them with the client. Just to confirm what we're working toward is a completely professional and helpful thing to say at the start of any engagement. That's it. Managing the freeze. The freeze comes from outsourcing your confidence. You make a decision and then immediately doubt it. Then go look into the client to tell you you've made the right decision. This creates anxiety for you and noise for the client. The fix is to make decisions and stand behind them, at least until the agreed feedback point. Marcus's pattern was to produce work, doubt it, revise it extensively, send it with a defensive essay, and then feel relieved when the client liked it. The problem is that the defensive essay signals uncertainty, and uncertainty is contagious. A client who receives 17 sentences of preemptive justification starts wondering if there's something they should be worrying about. What Marcus learned to do instead: produce work, do one honest review pass, send it with a short note that explains the thinking clearly and confidently, and then wait. Here are 3 initial directions. Direction 1 leans into the craft and origin story. Direction 2 is cleaner and more retail forward. Direction 3 plays with texture and materials. I'm drawn to direction 2 for the retail context, but I'd love to hear your instinct. That's it. Confident, clear, invites a decision rather than approval seeking. The discipline for avoiding the freeze: set yourself a decision deadline. By X time on X day, I will have made this decision and I will not revisit it until the client has responded. Give yourself permission to send imperfect work at the right time rather than perfect work too late. So what about managing the over-delivery spiral? The over-delivery spiral is sneakier because it feels virtuous. You're just being thorough. You're just giving them a bit extra. You're just making sure they're happy. But over-delivery has costs that aren't visible until later. It takes more time than you budgeted, which means you're effectively working for less than your agreed rate. It sets an expectation that this is the standard. So the next client or this client's next project will expect the same. And it depletes you in ways that show up in your energy, your creativity, your ability to do good work for this client or the next one. The fix is to treat your agreed scope as a commitment in both directions. You committed to delivering what's in the agreement. You also committed not to silently expand it without either charging for it or continuously choosing to absorb it. When you catch yourself adding something that wasn't in the scope, stop and ask, is this genuinely necessary for the agreed outcome? Or am I doing it because I'm anxious? If it's the latter, you'll usually know. Don't do it. A practical boundary that you can use. If something takes you more than 30 minutes beyond what you estimated, stop and name it. Either it's a rabbit hole you need to climb out of, or it's scope creep. You need to flag that. It could be that it's a systemic underestimate that you need to build into your pricing going forward. Any of those is worth knowing. None of them are solved by silently absorbing the time. You don't need to give constant updates. You do need to communicate at the agreed milestones, flag problems early, and be reachable when your client has a question. A simple rhythm to use. Let the client know when you've started a phase. Send work at the agreed point and give them a clear time frame for the next step. Make sure you flag anything unexpected as soon as you know about it, not when it's a crisis. If something is taking longer than expected, tell them before the deadline, not after. I want to flag that X is taking longer than I estimated. I'll have it to you now by new date. Is a professional communication. Sending nothing and missing the deadline is not. If the client goes quiet when you need feedback, one chaser, clearly worded. Just checking in. I need your feedback on X by X time to keep us on track for the delivery date. That's it. And the over-delivery test. If you add anything to a delivery, ask yourself, is this in the agreed scope? If yes, do it. If no, ask yourself this. Did they ask for it? If they asked for it, have a conversation about whether it's included or additional. If they didn't ask for it, if you're adding it yourself, ask why. If the honest answer is because I'm anxious, close that tab and move on. Anyway, back to Marcus. By the third phase of his project, Marcus had settled into something that actually works. He makes a decision, he reviews it once, he sends it. His cover notes are 3 sentences, not 17. He's given himself a rule. No sending anything after 9 p.m. because nothing good comes from a late night anxiety spiral, and a brief is not improved by being stared at for 4 hours. He delivers the final files on time. The client is happy, genuinely happy, not just politely happy. They ask if Marcus does social media templates. Marcus says he does and quotes for it as separate work. He's tired at the end of the project, but it's that good kind of tired, the kind that comes from doing work you're proud of, not from running in anxiety circles for 4 weeks. That's what we're aiming for. This week's task. I've got 2 things for you. 1, if you have a current client or a project starting soon, write down your 3 confirmed things before the work begins. What done looks like, what the feedback process is, and what is out of scope. Share them with your client as a simple confirmation. And 2, pick one of your patterns, freeze or over delivery, and decide on one concrete rule to manage this during an engagement. A decision deadline, a scope check before adding anything, whatever fits your specific version of the problem. As always, there are worksheets that walk you through doing all of this in the BBS community that you can access through the courses tab, and they are there with this and previous weeks of Basic AF all in one place. If you're in the middle of your first delivery right now, or you've just finished one, come and share how it's going. Not the polished version, the real version, because everyone in that community is either in it with you or has been in it recently. And the reality of first delivery is something worth talking about, honestly. And it really helps those who haven't hit that stage yet. Link is in the show notes. Next week, we're moving into the systems block. Week 14 is simple CRM, which is a fancy way of saying how to keep track of your clients and leads without buying expensive software or building a spreadsheet so complicated it takes a PhD to update. We'll see you there.